Reading smutty romantasy, getting out of reading ruts, and abroad weddings are all topics myself and Jess B Davies speak about in this week's episode of Genuine Chit-Chat, so stay tuned for all of that and more. Hello my friends and welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat, the show where I have tangent-filled conversations with different guests each week to talk about their passions and what excites them, all in my personal quest to have the most interesting conversation possible. And this week's passionate person is none other than Jess B Davies of the Femme On Collective, the creator of the Bang Average blog, and also prospective writer. Well, I say prospective, she's done a lot of writing, but none of it's been seen by the public, really, aside from the little snippets that she gives us. So it's lovely to have you on the show. You're the last. I've completed the set. We talked about Pokemon before. Got to catch them all. The Femme On Collective. You were the final person of the Femme On Collective to have on this show. So we've managed to have them all on. So thank you so much for coming on. And we can just start right there of how did you get involved with Femme On? I think it's because you knew Ria beforehand, but please let us know.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on your show. You've completed the set. Well done. I should have brought like a balloon or something. But yeah, no, Ria, the wonderful Ria. She said to me one day, she's like, I'm kind of thinking about bringing together some women in my life who inspire me and who I really and who are creative and who I really want to make fun, creative things with, to do a podcast collective. And I was like, I am in. And actually at the beginning I was really nervous because I was nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, there are all these really amazing women who are, they are film producers and authors and poets. And at that time I knew that I wanted to be a writer for maybe 6 months. It was just little baby Jess with her little baby blog in the middle of the internet. And all of a sudden there are all these there are these wonderful, amazing women, very accomplished in my eyes. And we were all on an email thread, and I get really weird and awkward sometimes. So Ria messaged us all on email, and the others started replying like, this is really exciting. And I think I said something like, I just totally freaked out. And I said something like, this is going to really fluff my tail feathers. And afterwards I was like, why did I do that? But it made the others laugh. So that's good. So that's how I came to know everyone on the Femme On Collective. And I'm so grateful. They are just so they're
a powerhouse.
Yeah, that's how it feels. But also they are a safe space. They are my inspiration. They are my safe space. They are my sounding board. We don't keep in constant contact with each other, but when we do meet or when we do speak, whether that's via WhatsApp or on a call, it's always just wonderful. And that's what a lot of my friendships are like. I tend to hear it now and then. So I have a lot of friendships where I might not speak to you for 3 months, sometimes even 6 months, but when we do, it'll be exactly the same, because there's that mutual respect and intentionality there, and that's what we have as the Femme On Collective. So and also they're just being a group where they're creating such amazing content it's just lovely.
Yeah, I mean, they're all such incredible people, and I've had the pleasure. I think you and Ada are the only ones I've not met in person in real life, but I've managed to sit down and have conversations with each of you / them one-on-one as well, and so I've really gotten to know each of you. And you are all powerhouses. You are all incredibly intelligent and strong women, but also so welcoming and so friendly and so happy to listen, while also giving such incredible insight. And it's just amazing. The Femme On Collective as a whole is phenomenal as an idea, but also in its execution. And I love it. It's one of those things in your show, Literature for Life, as well. It is inspiring, because I think I remember hearing on one of the pods, I think, about you had maybe not a break, but maybe a hiatus from reading as much. And I went through something similar. But for me, Star Wars brought me into it. I know that your partner does read almost exclusively sci-fi,
It
but
does.
with me, that was me for a long time. I fell off of reading. I think because we're basically the same age. I mean, I'm 31 on Sunday, so we are very
Very close.
yeah. And so I think what happened to a lot of people our age is that avid readers when we were young, and then for me it was like college and finding myself as well as alcohol and oh my god, women are actually interested by me now. That's way more exciting. And then video games, and then as I got into sort of the 20s, that's when streaming came a bit more into thing, and it was like so hard to be bored, and because everyone is talking about Stranger Things or Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or whatever, and all these things, and obviously Star Wars and stuff coming out, it's kind of like I want to be able to talk to people about certain things. So I want to tune into Stranger Things or this or that, be part of the conversation. And I think that I myself was constantly finding excuses to not read. And it was one of those things where basically it was not long before I met Megan. So I think it's about 8 or so years ago, where I just picked up a Star Wars book. I think I was going on holiday or something. And I picked up a Star Wars book, just go, I'll give it a go. And I think it was around the time the canon reset, so I think it was about 10 years ago. And I read it. I was like, this is quite good. And I read another one and another one. And then I kept them for about 3 or 4 years. All I was reading is Star Wars books, just purely. And I was like, this is my own little... And I was reading the comics as well, but I was like, I'm in my nice little safe space. I'm away from the world, and I don't have to worry.
I'm in my bubble.
Exactly. And then really because of people like Tony, people like Tonya, people like yourself, people and Alison as well, who are like so well read and clearly have such passion for reading. And then whenever I go, oh yeah, I've read quite a few books, and people get excited, like, oh my god, what books you read? And I go, oh, it's only Star Wars. And like people try and be excited, but anyone would know. It's like, you are kind of changing yourself. No one would have said that to me because they didn't want to, yuck my yum, as it were. They were like, you're having fun reading Star Wars. That's you. If that's what makes you happy, you can do it. But then I was starting to feel like I need to read more non-Star Wars stuff, get me out of this funk. And I think it was actually Tony's book, the first in the Austin Chronicles. I believe that was the first one in a long time that I read, and it broke the mold a bit. There's maybe the odd book that kind of came out, but since then, and reading that, I've been really trying to make an effort. Like every other book I read is Star Wars or non-Star Wars kind of things. So that was kind of my journey really for reading.
Yeah.
I'm interested if you could tell us a bit about your potential reading hiatus, what got you back into it and stuff, because now you're such a passionate reader, and I love hearing the passion of you talking about the ACOTAR series or Fourth Wing or Still Life or any of those things. So I'd love to just hear about your book journey, really.
First, I'll tell you a little secret. I am passionate about books, and I am an avid reader. I am the world's slowest reader. The slowest reader. I also get distracted. So I am a person who who starts multiple books.
Ooh, dangerous words.
I know.
Coming out.
It is, honestly. It's kind of like shots fired at myself from, I don't know who's going to get angry with me, and I apologize in advance, but I took a picture of my bedside table like literally 3 days ago, and I think there are 4 different books on there. Each one I've started and I've not finished. I also do this fun thing where I get almost to the end of a book and then I stop.
I do that with non-fiction though. When it's the wrap-up chapter, I'm like, I'm not ready.
yeah, that's it. I do it with fiction, and it's not because I'm not enjoying the book. I think maybe it's because I'm not ready for it to be over, or I'm not. I'm a person who has to read to match the mood that I'm in. And that's why I totally get what you're saying about breaking out of the mold, because especially if there's a lot of other stuff going on in your life, like for example, COVID, when something is happening that you feel like you don't have control over, we reach for things that we do have control over, and for things that make us feel safe. And so we focus on our comforts. Your comfort with Star Wars, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, well done for trying to get out of it, because there's such value in reading a wide range of books, because you can start appreciating and enjoying other books, which is wonderful. But I also think that there is absolutely no shame in knowing what your comforts are and staying there for a little bit if the world feels a bit shit. So that's kind of what happened to me last year. my partner's mum died, and it was all very tragic and very sudden, but also not sudden because she had a tragic accident and then she was just in hospital for like 2.5 weeks. I think I need to have like a whole separate conversation about expectations around what actually happens then. But anyway, it meant that we were in a situation where I had absolutely no control. And I didn't read. I hadn't been reading for a while because last year was, even before her accident, it was a year of change. A lot of stuff happened last year, a lot of bad stuff, a lot of change. And so the whole year, well, most of the year was kind of like making big decisions and grappling with things we couldn't control and reacting to things that were happening very quickly. Like we had to move. We were doing a big move from London to Surrey, and then my 18-year-old dog died, and I had to go back home and stay with my mum for a bit, and Luke's mum died, and all of these things happen, and it makes you really like insular because you're just like holding on to whatever makes you comfortable or whatever is easy. And what you said earlier about there are so many ways to not be bored. There are so many distractions in the world, and we are also terrified of being bored. And our phones and TVs make it incredibly easy to not be bored. But I also think what comes with that is maybe a fear of quiet spaces, because when there's a lot going on, sitting in a quiet space is a great way to let all those horrible thoughts like come out of your head. Or feel a lot more real. And so I didn't want to sit in quiet spaces and read. I wanted to be listening. I listened to a lot of podcasts, watched a lot of TV, scrolled a lot on my phone, just Instagram, quick distractions. And so that was me for most of last year. So I think my reading slump was 9 months. I mean, I had 9 months of last year. And then at a certain point, my friend, who also lost her mum the year before, she was like, look, I know that you're in a tough spot. If you need a bit of escapism, I would recommend this book. And I'm the type of person that if I don't do something in the moment, then I will forget about it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to download this. Just downloaded the audiobook for Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And because, again, I'm a slow reader, so I have to listen to books. Most of how I consume books is I listen to them, because then I'm doing stuff while I'm listening to it.
Same. Yeah, chores and traveling. That's the main thing for me.
Yeah, exactly. I find it hard to allow myself the space to just sit down and read unless it's before bed, like an actual physical book. I'm trying to do that more. So I downloaded the audiobook, and that was me. Because and everyone who's read Fourth Wing, apart from Tony, well, I don't know. I haven't had a proper conversation with Tony, but he calls it the hate bang series because there is a long hate bang. There is a long when enemies become lovers. There's a lot of hate banging in Fourth Wing because enemies are becoming lovers. So he calls it the hate bang series. But everyone who I've spoken to who has read Fourth Wing will tell you that it grips you from the beginning. And I need a book to do that. I struggle with books that are slow burners. I don't have the attention span for slow burners. It grips you from the beginning. And that was me. It was escapism. And I binged it. And it's like a 23-hour book or something. I binged it so hard. I would be like getting into the shower at like 10 o'clock at night, and it would be on full volume. And all of a sudden they would start having sex. And I was like, oh, fuck. I really hope my sweet neighbors who are, kind of in their retirement phase, looking at this smutty book, dragon riders, like breaking
shadow daddies and
breaking wardrobes because they're having too much fun in the bedroom. So it was pure escapism, and it reminded me that that books could do that. but also it was my first experience of reading Romantasy. I've never really been a fantasy reader. In my 20s, I went through a period of self development, self improvement. I wanted to be more plugged into to the problems of the world. Just baby Jess trying to figure out who she is. So I read books like Shrill by Lindy West, which was an excellent book. I read the MP Jess Phillips. I read her book. I was trying to a lot of non-fiction, whatever, but I'd never really read fantasy. I'd never read romantic fantasy, and now I am a romantasy girl, woman. I'm a romantasy woman, because it's just such escape. It's such escapism, and even if it's the same formula, I don't care, because there's so much fun in it. There's just so much joy. I want to do more things just for the fucking sake of it, because I think too often we're like, oh, I've got to read this thing so it benefits me, or I've got to read this thing so there's got to be a reason for me to read this thing. I've got to get something really important from it. Like, no. All you could get from it is joy. All you can get from it is joy and comfort. That's so valid. Read that book for joy and comfort. You don't have to spend your whole life reading self-development books. Like, you're good. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. And I love that you're trying to broaden your read Star Wars and then read something else. And as long as you are taking joy from that, as long as you are enjoying that, then that's great. But if I tried that and I was like, oh, this is bollocks, I'm just going to read Romantasy for the rest of my life, like, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all reading, I'd say, is good reading. And also it's one of those things, I think, especially our generation, where so much of us have got less money. Like, we're millennials, are the first generation to have less money than the parents' generation for, I think, 150 years or something crazy. Like, it's genuinely
sadness.
It's ridiculous, because it's just because, the cost of living crisis, and then the housing crisis, and then because people older than us are staying in senior positions in jobs longer, because the people at retirement age are not retiring as early. So it has a trickle-down effect of none of us can get the promotions we want. There's not enough jobs for people. All of the, air quotes, lower end jobs, which a lot of people were kind of starting with, aren't available, because people who are older, who maybe retired and came out of retirement, are now going into those other jobs. So the whole thing is just like, oh, and we were the generation that was like, oh yeah, we lived through a recession. That was like our teenage years, was literally, oh, everything is on fire. Okay. And then everything in different ways has continued to be on fire. And then everything kind of started to be okay for our generation to a degree. And then COVID hit. And I'm like, okay. So I'm all up for, like, however someone wants to escape the world, process the world, deal with things. Because even reading, Romantasy, smutty or not, it's still, you get something out of it, either from just putting the blinkers on from the noise of the world. I call it like the static, like when you have an old analog TV and it's not tuned into anything, and that black and white static.
Noise. Yes. I feel that in my bones. Exactly. I feel that fucking noise in my bones. And I am craving quiet.
Exactly.
Spaces now.
And that noise is exactly, like, that's what it is when you're thinking, especially when you get a bit older. I think once you're past through your 20s, when it starts to seep in a lot more, because it's like, okay, there are social commitments, there's financial commitments, I have to think about my job, but also I want to make sure I'm doing a hobby that's actually good for me. But also I don't want to get stuck doom scrolling for too long, and then I feel bad about doom scrolling when I have a tough day. But then also I should be exercising more, shouldn't I? Yes, I should. But also I need to be doing this. Am I giving my partner enough attention? And you're like, all of this
hungry.
All at once. Yeah, exactly. And it's just like blah, 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 blah. So no, I completely understand where you come from there, and I'm all up for, like, anyone reading anything. If someone's like, look, all I do is read Spider-Man comics, I'm like, thumbs up. If someone's like, all I do is listen to audio romance audiobooks, that's fine. Like, I used to, I think when I was a teenager, be a bit of an edgy dickhead, because I was like, I'm into metal music and I'm counterculture and anything normal is bullshit. And it's like, no, the realization I had a few years ago was really, spending X amount of hours consuming Star Wars or watching really intense war documentaries, at the end of the day, they both kind of mean nothing. Like, in the sense of, you can watch certain documentaries and it can change your perspective, and you can learn about a culture, and learning about people's culture is important. However, watching lots of documentaries and someone who watches loads of reality TV, although there is a degree of judgment there, and I'm not absolved from certain amounts of judgment if someone only watches reality TV and never does anything else. But at the end of the day, it's their life. And if that's how they break from the stresses of their work and their personal life and all the things going on behind people's scenes, everyone is pretty much normally, especially our age, going through some form of grief. Whether it's, your dog Sammy, whether or not it's your partner's, or the family dog, I think, whether or not it's like your partner's mum, or if it's your actual like direct blood relative, or if it's like there's so many areas of aspects. Even some celebrities, when they pass away, can really mean a lot to people. So I think everyone's in, especially at our age, when unfortunately the older generation often pass away, there's so much grieving and there's so much weight to the static and everything. So I used to be a lot more of a, I don't think I'd overtly be a dick about it, but I think a lot more dicky about it. But now I'm like, hey, you do you, and one thing linking with ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, I did want to ask actually is, a friend of mine, she read Fourth Wing and she adored it, and she's read all the ACOTAR series and she really enjoyed it. Now, if memory serves, the book after Fourth Wing is Iron Flame, and then the newest one is Onyx Storm. Have you read both of those as well?
Yes.
Or listen to. Listen to. We're going to say read, we mean listen to, because I listen to audiobooks, and then what I normally do is I try and find the book in a charity shop, which is what I did with Invisible Man, just to have like a little trinket almost to celebrate me getting the audiobook. And then with Invisible Man, I found that because so much of the prose and so much of it is quite intense, I found myself at points pausing the audiobook and physically reading it or rereading parts, because sometimes it's better, but there's other books where I picked up and I bought them and I was like, I'm going to read this. And then I'm a bit of a slow reader and I struggle finding time to just set aside to do nothing but read. So then I end up getting the audiobook as well. So now I'm like, audiobook when I'm in a busy mood, when I want to chill, I can quietly read. So now I've got a physical in the audiobook form. But I want to ask, with ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, have you found that the Iron Flame and Onyx Storm have been as good? Because from my friend, she said that she wasn't as fussed on the third book as much. She really likes the exploring aspect. And then following on from that, to allow you to give you a nice natural tangent, I'm purely controlling, is In My Thirsties. I just love that. Yes. I want to say that on air. I adore that. So please, baton to you. Tell us a little bit about ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, and
being a thirsty bitch. I'll fucking talk about that all day long. I'm getting to this. So I'm 31, and part of why I really enjoy reading and talking about romantasy. So I say reading, talking. The last 3 episodes of Literature for Life have been me talking to Ria and my friend Brigitte about romantasy fiction, Fourth Wing, ACOTAR. We're actually going to be branching that off now. So we've got a new podcast that's going to be launching soon called The Romantasy Coven. And we're very excited about it. It's just going to be us 3. I mean, we might have the odd guest. We're already planning some guests just talking about romantasy. And what I realized, one of the reasons that I loved about it was we are having conversations that women have all the fucking time. And that's like, you get together for a gossip and you just end up talking about sex. And when I first got into relationships with men and they started realizing that me and my friends spent a lot of time just talking about sex, they were like gobsmacked. I think one of my a boyfriend that I was with even said like I hope you don't tell them too many details. And I was like, yeah, no. In my head, I was like, I tell them all the fucking
every
details.
Single thing, absolutely everything, down to the veins. Like I know. Yes,
and there is absolutely no shame in that, and that is our right. I mean, it shouldn't just be women having these conversations. Men should be having these conversations as well, because sex is it's a really big thing, and it's pleasure, desire, all of that stuff. Everybody deserves to have good sex and to be desired and to feel pleasure. Everybody deserves that, and it's been really stigmatized and shamed.
Especially
part of
towards
what we
women
do
as well. Let's be honest. Men for a long time have gotten away with saying whatever the hell they want about sex, and it's only been the last few decades of women have kind of been allowed to have that space, which is horrible to say. But I'm so glad. I just want to say that I'm so glad with In Thirsties and like a lot of book talk stuff, women openly being like, yeah, I read books about people fucking dragons. Yeah, I want to. Fuck you, I do what I want. We've had to listen to you like watching porn and all that shit and all this male gaze crap in movies for literally 100 years. And what I want to read a book that just kind of gives me that nice warm feeling. Well, go fuck you if you've got a problem with that. So I'm 100% on your side. Sorry to interject.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Excellent ally. But yeah, exactly. So like sex has been so stigmatized, and women get one of the things I learned when I was like, late teenager, early 20s is like, we have to talk to each other about sex, because otherwise we most of the time are having a really shit time that we think it's normal, because a lot of men don't fucking bother with women's pleasure. And so one of the privileges of being a woman is being able to talk with your women friends about sex. And it's the same when you talk about romantasy fiction. Like, not all romantasy fiction is smutty. And I have read some great romantasy fiction that is not smutty. What's it called? One Dark Window is the name of the book, and I can't remember the author. But
it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, there we go. It's a duology. There are 2 books in the series, and it's brilliant. It's not too smutty. But if it is smutty, it's just such a fun conversation to have. And so we use it as an opportunity to talk about sex, if we want to talk about sex, because that is our right as women. And, as I'm in my 30s now, I'm just like, I want to talk about it more with women, not just with women. I just want to talk about it more because there's this excellent podcast by Brandon Kyle Goodman called Tell Me Something Messy. And at the beginning of every episode, they say, we destroy the shame around sex by talking about sex. And I love that. I want to do more of that. And so, I just never realized that romantasy fiction would give me a way to do that. So that's been wonderful. So I'm in my thirsties. I am thirsty bitch for romantasy fiction and smutty novels. And I'm having a great time, and we are having a great time talking about it. Caveat: I want to make sure that any potential listeners of the Romantasy Coven, not all of our episodes are chatting about sex and smutty things. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. It depends on what we're talking about. But yeah, so what I will say. So Fourth Wing was amazing. Iron Flame it was long, and there were lots of really good parts of it, but there were lots of like there were quite a few annoying parts of it were a bit slow. Thank goodness for audiobooks. There was a lot of typical tropey miscommunication stuff between 2 of the main characters that just drove me insane.
Yeah, like a badly written sitcom kind of thing where, you just saw me with my pants down in the room with this person, and no, please listen to me. No, I can't. I'm too angry at you, and then it sets off a whole thing of events. And you're like, if you just said exactly what happened, rather than keep weirdly not saying it or saying it in different ways to create this fake tension. Yeah, that drives me mad.
And the first half of the book was basically just that. Well, it's that and other stuff, but it was mostly that was the main thread. Them being annoyed at each other and it's all set in this. The context is like they're in a fucking war college where people are dying all over the place, because it's the whole idea is that you weed out the weak, right? So you could die any day. Now imagine being in a war college where you could die any day. Would you fight about a miscommunication, or would you just have sex every day because you could fucking die? Would you ride your dragons and have sex and be done with it? Or would you be like, oh, you've got to say you love me before I'm going to do anything? Oh, shut the fuck up. Like, just get on with it. Anyway, so the second half of Iron Flame, amazing. Rebecca Yarros is excellent at plot. Like, she knows how to twist plot. Onyx Storm, again, it's probably too long. And there is a lot of, we went to this island and then we went to this island, because they're like searching for stuff. That could have been done much quicker, I think. But I'd say I enjoyed most of it. The male character's starting to do my tits in a bit. He's a bit too, I'm so angry. But it's it's still really worth a read. And actually, talking about book ruts, what I will say, and this blew my mind. My mother has been in what I'd say is like maybe a 5-year plus reading rut. She is someone who finds comfort in reading the same... watching the same TV programs over and over again. She doesn't like, she likes finding a show that she likes, and then knowing that there are like loads of seasons to binge. Because also she doesn't want
that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, come on, who the fuck is still watching Grey's Anatomy after like 20 seasons?
Megan's mum is.
What?
I
Okay,
know.
we have to
And she's
have a
rewatched it as
conversation
well.
with her. What? What? Surely they're
How do you have
just
the
all
time?
dying and re-coming alive again.
It's basically well, that's why I don't like soap operas. No shade to people like soap operas. I think
It's
they're
a continual
one of the worst
funeral.
things.
It is one continuous funeral.
Can't get out of it. There's a finite amount of storylines. There's no break. How can you make it original? It's just, and especially when it's Grey's Anatomy or a soap opera like EastEnders, things like that. It's like you also are normally limited because where it's not R-rated, you can't even really. I know Grey's you can do a bit more with it because they do have crazy stuff going on, but you can't do that much. At least when it's a show that's like Game of Thrones or something. I know that's not a soap opera, obviously, but like, oh, there's crazy shit that can happen. People die in really gruesome ways, or magic comes into it or something. But when it's like it's a hospital, it's like, but
how
it's
many
18
different
hours
ways can you
per
die?
season. I know
exactly. How many different ways can you die? Apparently, a lot. But they're all just doing the same thing anyway. So no, not Grey's Anatomy as well. My mum has a limit. But all of this to say, like, she, I think it's maybe an attention span thing. It's also like she has a very, very stressful job. And when you have a very stressful job, you just want to come home and switch your brain off. And I think also there's like a certain level of effort, I think, that we assume goes into reading. Anyway, for whatever reason, she had a really, 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 really long reading rut to the point where I just stopped buying her books because they would just sit on her nightstand and like never be read. Anyway, so the other day, I swear to fucking God, I had not told her about any of the books I was reading. I had not told her about the podcasts that I was recording because she fucking forgets. She doesn't pay attention. I love her, but she doesn't. She doesn't listen. She forgets. Just minding my own business, and I ring her and she's like, I've actually done a lot of reading. Actually, I was reading this really good book and it's like really pulled me out my rut. What's it called? Fourth Line Wing of Fourth Wing. And I lost my shit. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You're reading Fourth Wing? She's like, yeah, I'm halfway through already and I started this morning. She read 30 fucking chapters in a day. She just sat in her bed reading this book. And I was like, yes. This is the power of a really, really good book, that can just take you out of your own world, your own reality, and switch your brain off. And just for like a day, you can just sit in bed and be involved in the lives of people who are, riding dragons and trying, climbing this intense wall and trying not to die and trying to develop their magical powers. And then I swear, so in like 2 weeks, she'd read the first 2 books.
Wow.
And then she decided
you don't get your reading speed
stop.
from your mum then. Clearly you've got...
No. But yeah, books are magical.
They are, and I want to ask. We will take a slight tangent from this, but I do want to ask: with if someone's listening and they haven't delved into ACOTAR, or is it the Empyrean series? Is that what Fourth Wing is?
It is the Empyrean series.
Yeah. So,
Empyrean.
And I've not just clarified, listeners. I haven't read any of these books. I just heard people talking about it, and I listen. Yeah. But with my friend who has read ACOTAR and has been reading Fourth Wing, and she had the same sort of criticisms as you, but she thinks that Onyx Storm, for her, she said it felt like a first draft. She was like, it feels like no one went in there and said, you need to cut this out. You need to cut this out. When she explained that to me, I was like, it sounds like George Lucas with the prequels, which is, you did so well with the original trilogy. We're not even going to check. Just do whatever hell you want. And it's like, someone should have reined it back a bit. And I don't know if I've not read these books, so I don't know anything about that, or Rebecca Yarros. But I want to ask, would you say if someone's going to get into or is interested in delving into romantasy, would you recommend A Court of Thorn and Roses, which is the first ACOTAR book, or would you recommend Fourth Wing if they were only going to choose one?
Fourth Wing.
Okay. Fourth
Wing, because Fourth Wing, the first book, will grab you so fast you don't know what your name is, and like 3 days later you realize you've not done anything except listen to this book. But ACOTAR, the first ACOTAR, right? If you're not listening to the audiobook while you do your laundry or take your dog for a walk, then I don't know how you can get through it. I really
slow burn
don't.
Kind of thing, the series as a whole.
Just the first book. The rest of them are pretty good. The rest of them are really good. Okay, so book 2 and 3, excellent. Book 4 is like this little Christmas time novella. Book 5 is pornography.
Okay.
Book 5 is pornography. And any woman listening to this who likes reading smutty fiction, you'll like that book. It is pornography. But obviously, it's good pornography. But it is just the smuttiest stuff. Like, anyway, I can't even begin to imagine the creative process. But the first book is like... anyone thinking about, so the first book is it's very slow. It's very slow. Towards the end, lots of stuff happens, but mostly it's a woman who shoots a wolf, and all of a sudden his wolf friend comes and gets really angry, picks her up, takes her to his mansion, and that's where she stays for a bit. Just like wandering around and getting to know him, and and then some really dramatic stuff happens and the book finishes. But what I will say is that series has got one of the best shadow daddies in it. But I did get bored by after the third book. I got bored.
That's fair.
Fourth Wing is the way to go.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I keep seeing even the book was grabbing me because I'm quite a visual person, and I'm so easy when it comes to suggesting books. Like Babel, like behind me. Literally, the reason I picked this up, it's shiny.
It's shiny,
and it's got Babel on. And Babel, I'm not a religious individual.
What's Babel about?
Well, I was going to ask you off air, but I was going to say for Literature for Life, at some point,
yes,
it's a chunky ass book. Because I recommend to Tony, and he obviously cleared it in like a few days. He started it after me and finished before me, and I'm like, I know he listens to a lot of things on 2x speed, but I was physically reading this. But it's I'll give you a brief non-spoilery elevator pitch. But yeah, shiny. The reason I picked it up was because I'm not a religious person, but I'm very interested by religion as a whole. So the two key things of human condition, which intrigue me the most, that I've read a lot of books on and watched a lot of documentaries on and spoken to people about, are drugs as a big thing, including, alcohol, and the perception really, and the drug war and all the, all that kind of stuff, and America's hand in actually spreading acid across the entire world, and the whole deals with Pablo Escobar, all that jazz, the intrigue of the stigma of drugs, as well as the documentaries to tell you about what they do to your brain and things. And the other end of it is religion. I went to a Catholic primary school, and that put me off religion for a long time. I was quite a militant atheist. And then I've been really interested by people's religion. Like Tonya and BZ came on the show and spoke about their religious beliefs, and it aligns closer with Christianity than most things, but there's tweaks to it. I've spoken to Buddhists on the podcast, Radhika Rao, which I think is a friend of Tonya's as well. So those two things really intrigue me. Babel is my favorite story in the Bible. I don't subscribe to it, but the story, for any listeners who aren't aware, is essentially the humans on Earth used to all speak the same language, and they also used to speak the same language as angels and, to a degree, God, even though no one can directly talk to God. But essentially, they all got together and decided, we're going to build a pillar to heaven. We're going to go to the holy place before we're allowed to. So everyone gets together, builds a tower, and God goes, nope, destroys the tower, separates all the people, and then makes them all speak different languages, takes away the language of God, the angels and stuff. And that was the Bible's explanation as to why everyone speaks different languages. Now, I love that idea. It's actually far more complicated than the realistic truth is, which is a bunch of people when they could speak and our brains could conceive it, just people in different places just pointed at things and said different sounds. So it's way more simple. That's kind of the reason I love that story so much, because it's so overcomplicated. Because obviously a lot of religion, a lot of doctrine in religion, I should say, is trying to explain things that humans couldn't or still can't comprehend, which is fine. I think there's some danger in certain doctrine, but not going to delve into that too deep. Not on this podcast anyway. This episode, because I've got space to do it another time, but we're not here on this podcast for that. But I found that when I see anything about Babel, it just intrigues me. I mean, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has the Babel fish and, things like that. So I saw the cover and it was shiny and it said Babel on it. And I was like, it was in the time where I was looking for another book to pick up. It's got a little sticker on it saying Book of the Year. The person who wrote it, R.F. Kuang, she's like a super genius. Did she write Poppy War, and
Yellowface?
Yellowface. Yes.
Yellowface is... Oh,
so Yellowface is a book I'm going to read, and
It's
I do want to read
brilliant.
the Poppy War as well. But Babel, what I like about it is, so it's set in 1800s Oxford, and it's got like an intricate magic system, which I won't spoil here because it's kind of a reveal in a way. But it's 1800s, and it's got a huge amount of social commentary on British colonialism. But that's not even the main part of the book. The part of the book which intrigued me even more, so you've got colonialism, social commentary, and written by, she's so intelligent. She's got like 2 masters, one from Cambridge, one's from Oxford, and she's a best-selling author, and she's got like loads of things. You're just like, you are another level. But the book is all about the etymology of words, which I find so interesting. Yeah. So throughout parts, because the main character is Chinese, and he speaks Chinese Mandarin, and the whole concept of the book is a place in Oxford, a fictional place called Babel, the Tower of Babel. It's a university where essentially British colonialism gets people in there, and they get taught how to speak like 5 or 6 languages, and then they get sent out to translate and to help the British Empire understand languages more for trading and things. You know, that's what they're told anyway. But because of that, what it does is it explains how when you're like learning, if your native tongue is Mandarin, trying to learn English is a lot more difficult than you'd think, because not only is it written in a completely different way, there's not even the same alphabet in any way, shape or form, but grammatically it's completely different, the structure's completely different. And so there's a lot of things in there about translation. It's like a very key theme of the book. And so when it talks about like, oh, I read this book. Oh, did you read the French translation of it? Or did you read the Greek translation? Oh, I read the French one. Well, in the French one, they don't pick up on this thing because of the specifics of translation is kind of down to the interpreter themselves. And they don't pick up on like certain slang words or metaphors, things like that, which again links to the doctrine of the Bible and etc. things like that. So I was really interested by it. And a lot of the pages have got little footnotes. And one that I always tell people, which I found interesting, is the word awkward comes from a Norse phrase which directly translates into when a tortoise falls on its back and can't get up. That's essentially the origin of the word awkward, which I found very funny because when I was in school, awkward turtle was this weird little thing people would do. And you just think, you would never connect the words awkward and turtle or awkward and tortoise together. You just wouldn't conceive of that. But when you delve down into the etymology of the words, they are directly linked. And there's so many cool things to like with that book. And I'm always trying to find an excuse to reread it. It's a big read. It's like 500 pages. And it's a book one does have to pay attention to. And I read it physically. I didn't read the audiobook of it. But I want to revisit it. So I wanted to, at some point, but I've done it on the podcast now, is ask you at some point, when you're ready, for me to come on Literature for Life and talk about Babel.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Because then we can delve into it, because you strike me as someone who really gets down. When you find a topic that you love, you really like get down, like almost underneath the skin of it, and you like to know absolutely everything. And it sounds like you did that with that book, and I'm so keen to let's chat about it on Literature for Life, because then we can really get into all the details.
Exactly.
But I loved what you said about being interested in like religion. I've actually just had a chat with Tony on Literature for Life, which I'm going to publish hopefully very soon, about a short book called Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. And religion is a really lovely theme that runs through it, because one of the main characters is called Sibling Dex, and they are a monk. And I think there is so much religious extremism now in the world that it's so easy to blame religion instead of blaming the people who do shit things in the name of religion.
They use it as an excuse a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And what Tony says is it's shitty people, it's the people, not the religion. And so I think any reminder that religion can actually be so wonderful. I'm an atheist. My partner's an atheist. But I think it's really, really important to, even if you don't have the same values, or not the same values, even if you don't have the same belief system, to still be able to have a conversation and to try and understand the experiences and the point of view from the people who have that other belief system. It's very much communication, being able to have that conversation. And that Psalm for the Wild Built is a conversation. The whole book is a conversation from people with people and robots with different experiences, and that is a skill that we need. And so I loved what you said about like you're an atheist, but you really, really got a lot out of this book about religion. I love that, like being able to delve into a story that about something that is not your belief system, and to get a lot out of that. I think that says a lot about who you are, but also that is a skill we all need.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate that. It was just because I was so close-minded for so long about a variety of different things. And I don't know when it happened, but I just kind of realized one day, and I was like, atheists don't know everything. Religion doesn't know everything. And I think I was sick of, because in primary school, when I was a Catholic, I'm very inquisitive. I was asking a lot of questions. And I'm very good at pattern recognition, which means I'm very good at pointing out inconsistencies, which makes it great. In my job, it's good and bad. I work in insurance. It's good for certain things. I'm a pain in the ass for my boss, because when a new process comes in place, I always say, this isn't going to work because of X, Y, Z. It's going to happen in about 3 months. And he writes it down, and I'm pretty much always right about that, because it's just one of my skill sets. And the problem I found when I went to Catholic school as well, and neither of my parents are religious either. And so I was going in and I was asking all these questions. I was like, but God says this, but in this passage, God says that. And they were constantly telling me, don't ask questions. They didn't have the answers. They didn't probably understand the text as well as I imagine I did. And they could have just very said, well, this part's a metaphor. This part with Jesus, yeah, he may have done that thing, but also, you know, the Bible's been translated like 17 times or something mad. You know, it was there's one point in history where only one monastery of monks could understand the script of it. So if they wanted to change something, they could have done. But to not be a cynic about it, if they didn't, just from translating one thing, you put a paragraph into Google Translate, you translate that into 17 different languages and go back round, it cannot be the same. It's not possible, especially with the amount of lessons the Bible's trying to teach, especially because the Old Testament and the New Testament, completely different ball games. You know, God is a different character in those two books. Yeah. So I had a moment, I was like, I need to realize my own issues with religion. I can't be mad at religious people. I need to understand where they come from. And so that's why on the pod, I specifically want to talk to people who do have different religious beliefs to me, just so I can understand, even though I don't necessarily believe there's a deity. You know, I have my own vague beliefs, but I am an atheist. But I really want to get into that. And I think with reading, like, for example, The Invisible Man, like, that's about an experience of a black man in the 40s and 50s in America. Okay. I am a white British sort of maybe lower middle class English millennial. Like, the privilege I have is arguably the most amount of privilege one can possibly have without being a trust fund baby. So like, I wanted to really, the podcast makes me want to understand the individuals who I speak with, but also I find a lot of the books I read, and especially ones that get recommended to me, I want to read things from other people of perspectives I wouldn't naturally come across in my life, and I can hear from how they want to put it in. Invisible Man is a fiction, but Tony Holt and I had a big conversation about it, and we were talking about how it says almost more than an autobiography would, because the author, Ralph Ellison, can frame it in so many ways.
Exactly.
So and so reading again, it's amazing.
That's the power of fiction. Exactly. That is the power of fiction, because a lot of people, you can't just tell them what the experience is. You have to show them. And that's why fiction is so powerful. That's why TV is so powerful, because it's like, no, let me show you what my experience was, but let me do it through this character and their story. It's just, And
fantasy does that. You know, Tolkien invented pretty much modern fantasy in a lot of respects. And he came back from like the war, and he was basically trying to, in a lot of respects, a lot of people believe is him creating these different races was really his kind of social commentary. And a lot of the characters like Legolas and Gimli, their whole relationship is literally two individuals from nations or cultures who should hate each other for their differences, but actually learn to love each other for some of the similarities, but also their differences, learning that the differences make them stronger. And it's like, one could create a podcast just about delving into the depths of Tolkien for probably the rest of my life, and you still wouldn't scratch the surface. And that's one guy and one book. And so I want to thank you, as well as other individuals as well, but, you know, you're here specifically about your passion for literature is infectious. And when I see how passionate you are, it makes me want to read more. Even if I'm reading something at the moment, I'm like, I want more. So even if I can't read the book, or I'm not necessarily going to, like ACOTAR or Fourth Wing, I'm not necessarily going to go out to read those. But hearing about how they've impacted someone or what they're generally about, I love to be able to have that conversation. I love to talk to someone about something they're super passionate about, even if I don't know that much about it.
Yes. I love that. I love that as well. And that's why I very rarely read the books that people come on to talk to Literature for Life to talk about, just because I already have 10 books on the go. Like, I have to face myself. But just hearing how much they love them and why they mean a lot to them, I love it. I love it.
Well, Still Life is on my list now. So whenever I'm in charity shops, I've got a list on my phone. Whenever I go into charity shops, it's the best place to get books. I just go, it's a fun thing. Go to a new city, especially an affluent area. When you get loads of rich people around,
oh my
they have
goodness,
the best stuff. Go to the Lake District or something.
Oh my goodness.
It's incredible. You go, they go, oh my God, they've got like a brand new Brian Sanderson book that's clearly never been read. Yeah, I'll get that for my friends because they love it. And like me, some of my friends now, whenever we go to new places, we go to charity shops, we message each other and go, have you got this book? Have you got this one? They've got another copy of this one. Do you want this? It's like £1. And so like, I got a copy of like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in hardcover. There's like quite a cool little book. So I'm going to be looking out for Still Life by Sarah Winman. I'm going to be keeping an eye out. And then when I find it, I'll add it to my list. And then when I get the vibe, I'll pick it up.
Yes. I have to make a note because, and this is what happens when you're flipping writer. It's like, whenever you get an idea, you have to write it down, especially me, because I forget everything. But charity shops, I need time and space to think about why they are so amazing. I love a charity shop, so thank you for reminding me.
They're the best. And Americans, they're called thrift stores, but in the UK, you only really... Americans, they do have thrift stores that also give to charity, but ours are purely... And pretty much any high street you go on now, there's loads of them. There's so many. Go to a place and they've got like 10 charity shops. I'm having a great time because sometimes you find weird little trinkets, but mainly I get to just look at the books. But I do want to take a pause here because we've got still a bit more time to chat about things. And I feel like I've been talking quite a lot about me and I want to delve into you a bit more. But let's take it because I want to talk about the Bang Average blog because I love it. But we'll take a little segue here to do some plugs. So anyone listening, follow me at Genuine Chit-Chat and all the social media places. I'm on YouTube. You get to watch the video version of this there. Subscribe, comment, all that usual jazz. Find out everything in the description, including the ADHD cast. I'll put the links to that with Jess. Also, the Tonya and Beezy religion discussion that we've kind of mentioned. I'll pop that in there as well. I'll put in, obviously, Femme On as well. But also, a little side thing is to Alison Shelton, fellow Femme On. We both did Where I Am. Your episode's the one after mine. I'm number 80 and yours is 81. And I was like, what? So I listened to yours today and I was like, what a coincidence. I was like, because I'm trying to listen to people's poems when I have them on, because obviously poetry says a lot about them. But I was like, how just a coincidence, because Alison's spoken to, so many people. She's nearing episode 200 and we just happened to be next to each other. That was cool. Wow. So baton to you to plug, your stuff. Again, I'll put links in the description and then we'll continue from there.
Yay. Okay, so hopefully by the time this comes out, the Romantasy Coven will be live. So you can find us on Instagram at the Romantasy Coven. You can find my newsletter my newsletter is bangaverageblog.substack.com. I'm also on Instagram, @bangaverageblog. I'm not really posting on Instagram as much anymore, just specifically for the blog. I'm just keeping it on the newsletter. But yeah, I think those are the two main ones. You can find all the Femme On content at Femme On Collective, and you can find me at Jess _B Davies.
And it's good stuff. And also you post a lot of photos of not only your good-looking partner, Luke, but also your very cute dog as well. So there's,
she is a cutie.
She is, the cutest. And you get some quite cool shots as well of her just running in the leaves, and you're like, they just look cool as well. So
leaves. Are we talking leaves, or are we talking big puddles of heaping shit?
When they get the mud socks, that's what.
Socks. This dog lies down in
blow
puddles
bubbles
of mud. Oh, yeah, she eats it. She like snaps her face in, and I'll watch it, and she'll know she shouldn't. She'll run in there and she'll do the play bow in the mud. And she's got long hair. So
Willow does the exact same. We got her something called an Equifleece, which game changer, because you have to. I'll message you about that. But Equifleece, this isn't a sponsor because they're a brand, but it looks like a normal fleece, and you go, that's not going to keep them dry. And she genuinely fully submerges herself in water, blowing bubbles, And then when she gets out, the only things that are dirty is her face and her paws. Once you take the fleece off, everything underneath completely dry, no mud.
Magic. I'm gonna get one.
It's not.
I'm gonna get one for me as well.
Just for fun. We'll see
when I have
photos.
to fucking go in there and pull her out, I also don't get wet.
Yeah, exactly. So I shout out for that. But so from here, we've got 20 or so minutes left. I'm going to pass the baton to you. Would you like to ask me about the Vegas wedding, or would you like to talk about Bang Average blog?
I think we can do both.
Okay. Which would you like to go for first?
You need to tell me about your Vegas wedding. Okay, so, and the reason I want to ask you about your Vegas wedding is because I'm in that phase of my life now where lots of my friends are getting married and they're all having wonderful, wonderful weddings, big country house or, destination weddings, and it's all wonderful and lovely. And me and my partner always look at each other like, this is not what we want, is it? We don't want this big wedding, do we? No, okay, just cool. And we've always almost got to justify it to ourselves because big weddings are everywhere. And they're super expensive and you don't know how people pay for it. And you're sitting in your rented house like, well, I don't have the money to spend on this mad wedding. Nor do I want to, but I feel like the outlier. And so I was feeling all of this. Me and my partner have been together for 7 years now. So we talk about getting married now and then, we're not desperate for it. And then all of a sudden, Mike and Megan sort of on their stories hop along over to Vegas and have what looked like the most fun. Vegas wedding, Disneyland?
Yeah.
The most fun. So please, I want to know why you decided to get married in that way.
Sure.
What you did.
100%. Yeah. I'd love telling that story. And I'll give you the abridged version. But if you want to hear the really in-depth version, about September time on Genuine Chit-Chat, we released 4 or 5 episodes where we delve deep into every part of the wedding. So we basically were for 4 weeks, which was quite expensive. It was approximately between 10 and 20 grand, but Disney in itself, just to be a week in Disney, that's 2.5 grand. Flights,
so it was 4 weeks.
Yeah.
People would spend 20 grand on one day. And also that's their choice. We're not yucking on yums.
No.
But you spent between 10 to 20 grand on 4 weeks.
That was including spending money. That was including everything. We didn't like my ring was not really, really expensive. It was like 200 quid or something. Megan's weren't that expensive either. Fortunately, she's not one who needs me to spend a certain amount of money on things, which is a godsend. But essentially, what happened was when we got this house, which it'll be soon to be 3 years ago, we spent all our money on it. We burnt through all our savings, and we had help to buy ISA, and we had help from our parents, and we had a bit of money from passed away relatives to help as well with that. And on top of that, we had nothing left. And we were talking about it, and we'd always wanted to go on a big trip, together, like a month-long trip. We kind of thought about doing it in Europe initially, and then we thought about doing it in America. We're going to be trying for kids and stuff. So we were like, well, Europe we can do kind of any time, and it's right nearby. And Megan's Megan's dad's Italian, so there's that kind of stop-off point we can use. And so we were saying, well, what if we try for kids and we have kids in this year 25 or whatever? Won't be able to go on theme parks. We both love Disney. I love Star Wars, as evidenced. So we basically said, okay, we'll do a trip to America for a month, and we were like, we said about getting married over there because friends of ours were going to do it and not tell anyone in COVID. And then they didn't. And they got married in Harlem. They went and eloped in there. Not Harlem, sorry. Nice. It was Salem, sorry. So It was, I said Harlem. I'm thinking about Ralph Ellison's book too much. They went to Salem where the witch trials and stuff were, and it's very spooky. It's like Halloween at all times. And that's their vibe. And it's really cool. And so when Megan and I were kind of saving and starting to think about it, we basically worked out how much it would cost to have a wedding in the UK, a traditional one. I'm not fussed about it. I have got no issue with people's traditional weddings, but I find them kind of boring. I've been to loads of them. They're all pretty much the same. There's some that are slightly better than others, but generally, as you say, it's a big, nice old house with some fancy-ish food, bit of dancing that's generally the same 100 or so songs, and they're all kind of the same thing. And it costs, if you're lucky, 20 grand.
Exactly.
If you do everything yourself in a village hall, it's like 15. But realistically, you're looking at 30 now. We can't afford that. So we were thinking, like, what could we do? And when we planned it out and things, it was like, well, flying to America and back is about $2,000 each. And we're like, okay, that's quite a lot. But aside from that, it's not ridiculous. So we were like, oh, we were planning on going to Vegas for a little bit anyway, because I want to see the Grand Canyon. Megan's been to America before. And so we're like, okay, well, why don't we just get married in Vegas? And then we mentioned it to our mums, and they were like, we were like, you're not going to be mad, are you? And they're like, no, we wouldn't be mad if we can come. And we're like, cool. Well, that can be the wedding gift then. You just fly to Vegas. So we basically spent a week in Vegas, and Megan had some friends who were living in America, one from Australia, which was amazing, and a few other people who basically just came there. And obviously I got to invite a lot of my podcast friends, Tonya, and also Chris, and also BZ as well. So some really cool people on my actual wedding day that I'd not met in real life. That was another bonus. Again, so if you guys wouldn't have did that, you'd be able to meet, because Alison's in LA, and we got to meet Alison afterwards. But essentially we want to do it because the cost, we just couldn't. Megan doesn't want to be the center of attention all day. I don't really want to spend all that money to listen to music I don't like, to eat food I'm not that fussed on, to be in a place I'm not that interested by. You know, I love museums. I love old places. But these old manor houses are just like old white money. And it's like, I'd rather hear about the culture a bit more. And again, no shade on anyone who wants to have a conventional wedding. But Megan and I didn't want the drama of this family member's not talking to that family member. Who's going to sit where? What are you going to do with this? Making sure that this uncle you never talk to gets included, even though you don't want them there. But if you don't, it's a big event. All that drama. Can't be arsed with it. So we were like, we're just going to do what we want. We basically said to our family, we're going to be in this place in Vegas for 1 week. We're getting married on this day, the Friday. We flew there Sunday. Get there on this day. And if you want to be there, you can. We would never expect anyone to do it. Friends and family were like, look, it's going to cost you like $2+ grand plus staying there. We do not expect a single person to do it. But if you do, here's the information. And we basically did that. And then we spent, a week in Vegas, then a week in California. We stayed with Chris and Elise for a little bit. That was really nice. Went to Universal for a day, then went across to Florida, spent a few days there, saw Tony, had a couple of like breather days, then had 8 days in Disney, another breather day, and flew back. And it was the best month of our entire lives, because not only do we get to spend so much time together, we spent 5 nights in Yosemite as well, which was the best thing ever, like beyond anything. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Spending a day in Star Wars World, phenomenal. Yosemite, next level. In a cabin, in the middle of nowhere, stream next to us. Oh my God,
I love that.
We went on walking in the day. We went swimming in a lake. We had hummingbirds around us and things like that. It was a feeder. It was genuinely, I've never had so much silence. You're just standing in the forest, and all you hear is nature. No cars, nothing. And I love the English countryside. I love the New Forest and stuff. But even when you're in the depths of the forest, you can still hear cars or civilization. Not in Yosemite. We would fly back to America just for Yosemite if it didn't cost so much money just to be there for a week. Genuinely, it's that good. So that was the highlight of the whole trip. And Megan would agree. Getting married to her was great, but Yosemite was top tier.
Yeah.
But it was really like, how often does anyone really spend a month away in one go? You don't really do it, because a holiday is like a week or maybe 2 weeks. It's rare to do a 3-week holiday. But because flying domestically inside of the US is not that expensive, it's actually, if you do it right and you're not fussed about being in like a 5-star hotel, if you're fine with just a 3-star hotel, which we are, because we aren't people who sit around a pool all day, we just want to have a home base, go out and explore, go walking, look at museums, go to crazy stuff, look at old shops and etc. and theme parks, and then have the home base, which really just needs a bed and a decent bathroom. We don't care about anything else. And if you do it like that, and you're just, you save up money before going, and you're just like, look, it's a yes trip, which is anything you see, we've saved up enough money and we have credit cards, anything you want that you want to get, just get it. Don't worry about the money. When we get back, we'll find a way. Don't buy like a Lamborghini or something insane, but you want to buy an extra book.
This is a yes trip, Mike. Right? There's the Lamborghini. Can I have it? Yes.
5 diamond rings. Thank you.
You guys did 4 weeks at a wedding for you. Yeah. That is the point. That is the point. Weddings have become something that people do for other people, either to show off to other people or to make sure that other people have a good time. This was a trip for you and Megan. 4 weeks. That is what I think. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I think we should do that more. I think we should make more of those big life decisions solely for us.
Yeah.
Instead of like, how will this make me look to the rest? to everybody else. And I think that's what I'm sitting with at the moment as we try and think about like what's the next step.
And it's cheap. Getting married in Vegas, it's like $100. Just going to the registry office here is like 400 quid. And you're like, what? For what reason? And I'd also say to people, like what we did as well, just to keep some of the family and some of the friends happy and to get another use out of the wedding dress, because you only wear it once, is we organised a party in October. So about 2 months after we got back, there's a local social club that was cool. It cost us like 200 quid to hire out the hall. We got a DJ that was like 500 quid. We got some food from like Sainsbury's and Costco and Iceland and stuff. And the bar was there. And we just said, we're not paying for your drinks, but it's cheap as hell. It's like £2.50 for a pint, so whatever. And we basically spent an extra, I think it's about $5,000-ish, maybe, just to hire out a hall. Don't use the word wedding, really. They were still super chill, so we did tell them it was for a wedding. But don't hire a giant wedding hall. And
exactly.
Another reason is I have a big family and lots of friends, and so does Megan. We had nearly 200 people. And when we were trying to cut it down for who's going to come to the ceremony, who's going to come to the reception, all that fucking drama, getting more than 100 people in almost any of those places makes the cost go from stupid expensive to genuinely completely unaffordable. Yeah. So we just said, the holidays for us, and then one day, a few months after the wedding, our wedding, we just have one day in a hall somewhere. You can get local village halls quite cheap, as long as it's got liquor licenses and stuff. And you do that, couple of grand. Even if you want to spend that, you don't even have to give people food. We ordered like Dominoes for everyone. We got like 30 Dominoes and stuff. But like, we spent a bit of money, I said $5,000 maybe, just to have this one day where we said to everyone, look, all of you come, 5 odd hours. We did a first dance. Megan wore her dress, kind of got everyone to be involved in the celebration with no drama, no massive wedding fees. And I would recommend that to everyone. Go on a big trip. Don't even necessarily tell people. Our friends who got married in Salem, they didn't tell a single person till they got back.
Because it's not for anyone else.
No, and I'd recommend
it's for you. Yeah, 100%. Perfect. Love that.
Yeah, so, and if you decide to do something like that and you want some information, I'll happily give it to you, but Megan,
you can be my wedding planner.
Well, Megan would genuinely jump at that opportunity.
Megan will be my wedding planner.
She would love it. We've got spreadsheets of all the costs of everything we did, an itinerary of everything.
That sounds perfect for Luke. I am anti-spreadsheet, but Luke will comb over that.
There's always one person in the relationship who loves spreadsheets. I'm like, I'm happy I'm happy you like them, but I can process things that I don't need the spreadsheet. Yeah. But yeah, so I'd recommend it to anyone, yourself or listening, is just like, go away for 3 weeks or a month, spend 10, 20 grand if you can on that trip, but don't piss away on stupid things like ice sculptures and expensive wine. I know you're a big wine fan, but like, do the stuff you want.
Yeah, do it. That's it. Make it what you want. So like, I would love to go and just spend my money on expensive wine. But if I brought Luke with me, then we'd have to like climb mountains or whatever. But it's whatever you want. It's whatever you want.
We did hiking in Yosemite. That was some of the best parts. Megan and I just walking in nature for it's like a 6-hour thing. We spoke a bit, but it wasn't about talking overtly. We just comfortably together.
Look, I'm married to you. I don't have to speak to you while on this trip. Yeah, cool. Hey, stop talking to me. This is a quick story about that.
Do.
Me, Luke, and 2 of our friends, we hiked the tallest mountain in North Africa a couple of years ago. Nice. And on the 3rd day, it was the worst day because we've been hiking for 2 days. We had to wake up at 2. We got plied with loads of different types of sugar. We're not really hungry because, like, I'm not going to talk about toilet situations when you're in the middle of these random little hike, these little base camps are hiking anyway. So we set off and we're all pretty low morale because we're knackered. We've had 1 hour of sleep. It's pitch black and Luke is really amped and he's like really, really amped. And at first he was so amped, he punched a rock accidentally. And then second, he was trying to like make conversation and get people going. He went, Krista, what's your favorite color? And she went, not now, Luke. He was so eager to just like, come on, let's go. What's your favorite color? And she's like, anyway, I can do tangents as well. I
love it. No, totally. But yeah, so if anyone wants to hear more about that, check out on September time, Genuine Chit-Chat. You can just hone in on the specifics if people want to. We did like 2 about Disney just because we were there for 8 days. And it was just the best. We still have got a bit of the holiday blues from it because it was such a beautiful break. And you guys will probably be able to do it cheaper because we had to go in the summer holidays. So it was more expensive because of Megan's a teacher and stuff. But at the same token, Disney was the least busy is the end of August because it's hot monsoon season and all the kids in America go back to school 2 to 3 weeks before we do. So actually, we never queued for more than an hour in all of Disney apart from on 2 rides. And that was only like an hour and a half. And that was it. Every other ride was like 20 to 40 minutes. But again, people don't have to go to Disney for their wedding trip or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, I do want to talk about Bang Average Blog. Now, I can scratch the surface, but we are...
No. I think, you know what? I think we can have...
Part 2.
We can do part 2, or when you come on Literature for Life, I'll probably talk about... Because books and writing all comes hand in hand. But all I'll say is my newsletter is... it's like a bit of an antidote to hustle culture, because everything in the world at the moment is like, optimize your life, or you can be better in this and you can succeed by buying this cream and looking younger, or all you need are lips and then you'll be happy, all that shit. And my newsletter is anti that. My newsletter is about all the little things that make us happy and redefining what success means for those of us like me who have just a low stakes bog standard 9 to 5 and this burning passion and almost impossible dream outside that she is really chugging and chipping away at. When who you are is not just defined by what you do, it's more about the connections that you have with other people and all your little hobbies that make up your personality, and all your little passions and the tiny little things that most of us have very easy access to live really nice little lives. That's what my newsletter is about. So yeah, just if that's your vibe, then come on over. You can subscribe, or you can just download the Substack app and read it now and then. But it's just a place of chill. It's a place of joy. It's a place where I'm not trying to be like, be better here and progress your life here, and you could just feel better if you did this fucking stupid yoga dance. Who cares?
Well, what I'll say is I would love in a month or two's time for you just to come back on and us just to continue this conversation, and then we can figure out Literature for Life, because Babel's going to take a while, especially if I'm going to try and reread it. But I've got a lot of unintentional psychoanalyzing of the Bang Average blog, and lots of little things I want to talk about, and lots of quotes that you've got, which I just think are so powerful. Things like, I don't feel desperate anymore. I could just talk about that for an hour, but I've got some thoughts, which I won't go into all of them here. But the one thing I'll say for me when I was reading your blog is the blog, although it's written to someone else, you're speaking to the reader, it feels like the person you're actually speaking to is you from yesterday. And I think that really shows a lot of the honesty.
Don't make me cry. What the hell? Oh my goodness.
So I thought it is powerful and very beautiful. And there's a lot more I want to talk about it, but it will be another hour talking just about the Bang Average blog. So this is the thing, sequel to Jess and Mike, number 2, the Electric Boogaloo, to talk about the Bang Average blog. So I can just talk about all the amazing things I saw on there and a lot of the quotes, and have a lot more talking of you, because, you opened my space. You opened this space to allow me to then talk about me loads, and then ask me a question about my wedding. So you tricky little so-and-so, you've come onto my pod. I want to, hyper focus on you, and you made me talk a lot.
Both podcast hosts, Mike. So we're very good at getting other people to speak.
Yeah, and you've done it this time, but there's so much more. I didn't even mention about your Where I'm From poem. I didn't even mention
we can do that
your
another day.
Identities and the things about, all these elements. So you're coming back on, and then I'll come on Literature for Life, just so we can talk a bit more about some of my other notes, because it's really great. But the key takeaway from a lot of the podcasts I've heard from you, and obviously this podcast is evidence of that, and all your output is honesty. And I know you've been putting a very specific effort to be even more honest and really focus and only really be with honest people. And that, I think, is the most important trait in humanity. Kindness is very important, but it needs to be honest.
I agree.
And all relationships are built that work on honesty. So the vibes you're putting out into the world, the key word of honesty is just so important. So again, I want to thank you for putting that out into the world and everything that you do on and off the public spotlight.
That is so lovely. That's so lovely. You really, you have done that nice little thing where you make your guest feel seen, Mike. I feel incredibly seen right now. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's wonderful.
No worries. Well, thank you for coming on. As always, friends, thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Bye.